Chapter 2. Trina slammed the phone on her desk without saying another word. I knocked on the office doorframe. "You okay?" Trina turned to me, blinking back tears. "I'm fine. Or at least I will be once I get him sorted out." I smiled and said okay, but I didn't believe her. Her lower lip quivered and she forced herself to smile at me. "Let's talk about something important. Explain why your grandmother needs these," Trina said. "Lemon will strengthen her blood, juniper will increase her appetite, and rosemary will help clear mental fog. These are good for any woman her age, and if they clear up the problem, then there's nothing seriously wrong with her." She sat on the edge of her desk and sighed. "The problem is getting her to take it. Do you think she'll take it because you asked her to, or will you have to convince her?" "I thought I would tell her it was part of my homework and that you approved it. She might have more faith in it then. Consider the best way to approach her while you prepare your ingredients. Don't worry about the test. You can finish it tomorrow." After a half hour of potion making, I passed my hand over the filled vial and whispered my intention: restore Grandma's health. Anyone could make a potion from a book, but it was the magical intention a witch added at the end of the process that gave it real potency. I brought the potion to Trina to check. She cast a subtle spell with the flick of her finger to check my potion. "Juniper, lemon, rosemary. Good work. Your intention is strong, too. Tell your grandmother I said she'd be foolish not to take it. She may need more than one dose, spread out over a few days before she is well again. If she gets worse, though, stop giving it to her immediately." She handed me the vial and picked up an envelope off her desk. "Watch the shop for me while I run this to the mailbox." I slipped the vial into my pocket. We had no customers, so I took the lavender and chamomile jars to the prep room to fill. I was halfway finished when the alarm on my phone went off. Time to leave for my second job, the one that paid my bills. While I learned a lot from Trina, being her apprentice didn't pay. I had to work 30 hours a week at my second job, counter staff at the fancy Tart Cafe. It wasn't the worst job ever, and Bethany Swift, the owner, was reasonable as far as bosses go. Someday, though, I wanted to run my own potions shop. You might think I'd have no worries being a witch, because I could make my own luck, conjure up all the money I needed, and create love potions to attract anyone I wanted. The witchcraft my family practiced was not like that. We followed some strict rules, because there were big consequences if you broke them. From the horror stories I heard as a kid, I knew I would never, ever use magic for personal gain because the price was too high. You've heard the stereotype of ugly crones? Those were witches who used their power for selfish reasons. I grabbed my coat and peered out the window. I didn't want to leave the shop until she got back, but I didn't want to be late for work either. I closed my eyes and relaxed the tension in my jaw. Trina would return any second and the cafe was only a couple blocks away. The door chimes rang and I opened my eyes. "I'm sorry, I got stuck talking to Caroline and couldn't break away. I'll see you tomorrow?" Trina said. I smiled. Caroline Arneson would ruin anyone's day. She wanted the apothecary space to expand her own tourist shop, but Trina steadfastly refused to move. "Yes, I'll be here before 10. Do you want me to bring coffee?" Trina said no to coffee, and reminded me once again that we never cast spells on or treat another person without permission. I agreed, but thought she sounded more like I was about to go full Darth Vader when all I wanted was to get a bit more spring in Grandma's step. I walked the 2 blocks to the fancy Tart, trying not to look in each shop window full of new spring merchandise. I loved the quaint, all-brick feel of Market Street and its tourist vibe, but I didn't have time for window shopping today. When I wasn't running late, I loved looking up at the 5-story buildings that surrounded Market Square and dreaming of owning one of the condos that the upper floors housed. The variety of shops in the square practically guaranteed I'd never have to leave the area for anything I might want. I didn't have a car and wouldn't ever need one here in Portsmouth. I opened the kitchen door of the bakery and clocked in 2 minutes late. I put my things in my locker and stood in front of the 6-foot-tall oven that was baking rye and pumpernickel loaves. I stretched my hands out, warming them after the cold walk from the apothecary. Bethany, my boss, turned from the papers on her desk in the corner of the kitchen and brushed a lock of curly gray hair out of her face. She had flour on her pointed nose and a grin on her wide lips. "Isabella, hi, is it 2 already?" "Yep. What do you want me to focus on today?" Some days there were special projects she wanted done, and on others I waited on customers, so I always checked first. "We've been busy today. Start by waiting on customers." "You got it." I walked through the kitchen, weaving my way between the metal tables the bakers used to knead dough. It was quiet because the 3 large floor mixers situated against the back wall were all off. I said hi to the afternoon baker, Andrew. Andrew was Bethany's younger brother, and at 68, he still had enough energy to put me to shame.
"Hey, Isabella, how's it going?"
"Not too bad. What's good today?" He grinned.
"It's all good. The last batch of croissants are exceptionally flaky, so I suggest those."
My mouth watered in anticipation. If there were any left by the time I took a break, I'd share one with Abby. Pushing through the saloon doors that separated the front of the store from the kitchen, I was surprised to see a line of customers snaking through the store and ending at the door. The glass-fronted bakery cases were running low on product, but what was there was arranged neatly. Students who needed their early afternoon caffeine fix occupied all the oak tables. I looked up at the chalkboard hanging behind the point-of-sale system to see the specials. We were out of honey lavender tea, but the cardamom rose coffee was still available. The next person in line caught my attention. It was Chuck Mitchell, our downstairs neighbor. He usually tried to jockey position so that Abby Allen, my best friend since kindergarten, would wait on him. "I can help you here, Chuck," I said with my brightest grin. Chuck was sort of handsome, if you liked neckbeards and hair that perpetually needed to be combed. Unfortunately for Chuck, Abby preferred the athletic, clean-cut type. Her preference didn't keep Chuck from asking her out at least once a week, though.
"Hi, Belle,"
he said with a smirk. Being called Belle, Bella, or anything other than my actual name bugged me to no end. He knew it, and he liked to see me cringe every time he pulled this stunt. Surprisingly, he hadn't realized that antagonizing your crush's best friend wasn't the way to win her heart. "Not a Disney princess," I muttered, before more loudly saying, "What'll it be?" "I'll have the usual, princess." His usual was a tall, hot mocha with 8 creams and 4 sugars. Yes, that was 4 sugars after the sweetened chocolate syrup. I swore someday I was going to go into sugar overload just making this coffee. I made his drink, grabbed the worst-looking chocolate chip muffin in the case, and handed him his order. Now, when I said the worst-looking muffin, I didn't mean it was bad. Bethany would have none of that. It was a bit smaller and had fewer chips than the others. Was it petty to do this? I contend it was much less petty than his continuing to call me Belle. He earned it. I rang him up and scowled at his retreating back because he always left a $5 bill in Abby's tip jar, no matter who waited on him. As soon as he left, she plucked the bill out of her jar and put it into mine. My next customer was another regular, although I knew hardly anything about her but her first name. Today, Agatha was dressed in a suit as though she was on a break from work, even though she had a hard time keeping a job. Her brown hair was held in a bun by 2 pencils, and I was pleased to see that she was wearing matching shoes. Sadly, that didn't always happen. She was arguing with Alice, the voice in her head, and as she stepped up to the counter, it seemed like she was losing the argument. "Hi, Agatha, can I help you?" 2 buttermilk scones and 2 chamomile teas. "We can't afford the caffeine this late in the day." "Right away." I pulled the scones out of the pastry case. "How are you and Alice today?" "She wants cardamom rosé coffee, but that will keep her up all night. She's arguing that I never let her have any fun." I turned to make the 2 cups of tea. Agatha had been a customer at the apothecary for at least a year, and I wasn't sure anything Trina and I could come up with would help her. She most likely needed psychiatric help, but never followed up on our suggestion to call a doctor. I handed her the tea and scones. "Stop by the apothecary and talk to Trina. Maybe she'll have something new for you to try." Before I knew it, my shift was over, and it was time for me to head to my family's house. I'd been too busy serving customers to worry about Grandma, But as I walked down Market Street, I felt a sense of wrongness that I'd only ever sensed once before, the day my great-aunt Jem was murdered.